Also, a lot of feminine, or no, sorry, what, book number 8, my top 8. God damn. He'll cut his thumb on his tongue, or sorry, his tooth. Oh my god, hang on. He'll cut his, Hi guys, we're going to be talking about my top 10 books that I read in 2025. I tried to put them in an order. If you asked me tomorrow, these would probably change with other books because I'm really bad about like changing my rating or being like, well, I mean, I liked this technically more than that, or this deserves more, or whatever. So I can't make a decision to save my life. So really quickly, like I gave myself like 2 minutes max to sit down and be like, okay, these were your top 10. This is the order, I guess you could say. But again, with the order, like I could change it tomorrow, be like, this is actually the order that it should be. Like one of these I'm very unsure that is where it should be, but we're not gonna mess with it. We're just gonna tell you my top 10 books and move on. You know what I'm saying? Because if I sat here and really thought about it, we would be here all day. I could tell you a million different reasons why one book should be in a different spot, you know? So we're not going to harp on that too much. We're just going to get into it. Like I said, I have my top 10 books, and then I also have a pretty decent stack over here of books that were like 4.5, 4.75 that I just want to really quickly show at the end, just because I love these books so much that I feel like they also should be in the top 10. You know what I'm saying? So we're just gonna yap about books that I really loved this year, or last year actually. It's already January, so books that I loved last year, and we're gonna try not to talk about them for too long. So let me get a sip really quick and then we'll get into it. We're gonna start with number 10, and this is a book that I read all the way back in January. I actually have, you know what's crazy? I have three books on this list that I read in January of 2025. After I read them in January, I was like, was that a fluke? Oh no, that was it. That was my favorite books. Actually, my top favorite book was actually also read in January, but we'll get there at the end. Starting with number 10 is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. So this is set in a world where magic is basically banned and taken away from them. This is following Zélie. I'm not sure how to say her name. I did listen to the audio for some of this, so I heard her name, but it's been a minute. But she is a diviner. The diviners all have white hair. They are the ones who are born with the ability to access magic. However, like I said, in this world, they can't access their magic anymore. So all the diviners are kind of like outcasted and looked down upon, especially by the kingdom. They're kind of looked at as like a threat. One day, the king's daughter actually witnesses, one of her best friends was a diviner as well, who was like a servant in the kingdom, and she witnesses her father do something horrific to her. So she kind of like leaves the kingdom, like, you know, in a distressed situation, and runs into Zélie, I'm pretty sure it's Zélie actually, and they kind of go on this mission to bring the magic back. I'm pretty sure it was like an artifact that they needed to unlock the magic again and make it accessible to everybody. So they go on a mission to bring the magic back, and this was so good. This had a lot of important like themes and undertones to it as well, which is why it really hit for me and like felt really important to me. And also the movie that is being made for this, it comes out in January of 2027. The cast for it is literally stacked. Like they have every single amazing actor that you could think of in that movie. So I am really excited for the movie to come out for this. I cannot wait. I just know it's going to be so beautiful and so well done. I will say book 2 was not the greatest, and then I kind of found out that everybody felt that way about book 2, and that book 3 was like even worse, I guess you could say. So I didn't even pick up book 3. I just read book 2 and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna love book 1 for what it was and appreciate it, and it's still gonna be in my top 10 because I just love a girl with a lot of rage inside of her. I don't know what it is, I just resonate with that a lot, and I really loved this. It is a YA fantasy, but it feels very adult in a way. So I love this. I would recommend it, of course. I recommend all of these books. But yeah, the writing was phenomenal. I can't wait to see what else Tomi puts out, because I feel like she could do a really great adult fantasy series as well. So we'll see. She's a busy girl right now, but we will see what she comes out with in the future. So this was number 10. Number 9 is actually a book that I don't see very good ratings about. You know, I don't see very many people. I do. like, I follow the author on Instagram, so of course I see a lot of love for the book and the series on there and like comments and everything. However, when I see like bigger book creators talk about this book, I feel like it's always like, yeah, I didn't like it, I didn't love it, I DNF'd it, and I'm like, what? I love that book. I read The Ever King. This was also read in January of 2025. Blood Singer. Oh my gosh. I'll put some fan art up on the screen. Some of the best fan art that I've ever seen, let me tell you. I thought this was so cute. Oh my gosh. I think there's some art in here as well. Oh, there is. Like, look how pretty this is. Oh my gosh. This is actually the indie published one. This has since been traditionally published. Here's some of the art that I was talking about. Like, Blood Singer, look at him. That man is, let's see. Oh, here it is. Oh my gosh. This one is like my favorite of them two. Look at him. You see him, right? Like, what does it say? Oh, across the skies. Stop, you guys. This is following Livia and Eric, who goes by Blood Singer. So basically, LJ Andrews has a long series that comes years before this series. This is actually the kids series. And in the parent series, you kind of see like the war that they went through and the aftermath of it is from what I understand. I only read the first book of it. But basically, how do I explain this? There's like the land fae and then the sea fae, and then there's this chasm that's in between them, or I always say chasm, but I think it's chasm that's in between them that locks the sea fae from being able to access the land. But one day, Livia and her friends are out there and she accidentally, unknowingly unlocks it, and they didn't realize that. And then so Eric comes, and when he gets there, he's looking for like this little talisman because that's what he needs to be able to access like the power of the Ever King. He gets there and there's this masquerade ball, so he has this mask on and he like goes and he romances Miss Livia and kind of like takes her back and starts like, you know, trying to get with her, and then kidnaps her. He kidnaps her and takes her to the Eversea on his little ship situation. The way that they ended up falling in love and finding out this connection that they had between them, and also in the past when Eric was a kid, he was kind of like a prisoner of war, I guess you could say, in the land side, and they also had like a little bit of a relationship during that as well. So it's just so cute. I thought it was so cute. I don't know, if I read this now, maybe I wouldn't like it as much as I did, but I loved this when I read it. The second book, The Ever Queen, didn't love it as much, but still loved Livia and Bloodsinger in that. I thought it was so well done. Bloodsinger is literally so hot. His magic is like, they call him Bloodsinger because so the sea fae, all of their magic has to do with like this song that they sing, and his like, he basically, oh my gosh, I'll put the picture up on the screen because it's so good. He basically like cuts his thumb on his tooth because he's a fae and it's like a sharp tooth, and then when his blood touches somebody, it basically poisons them and kills them like very painfully, and in order for them to not die, he has to like sing this song. So he basically uses that to like threaten people, and it's so hot every time he does it. I don't know what it is, but it's just, I just love it. Yeah, the top of it says they stole his crown, so he stole their daughter. And that he did. He did do that. And Olivia kind of liked it. She did. So book number 8, this kind of pains me to put this as low as it is. However, there's a very strong reason why it is so low. I did rate this 5 stars, however, which is The Sword of Kaigen. I thought this was very, very well done. An amazing fantasy story. The only reason that this is as low as it is because this was initially written as the first book in a series, and then the author ended up changing her mind and making it a standalone. So that's the only thing, is I finished this wishing I had a little bit more, even if it was like a little bit, like a little like novella or something to go at the end to kind of like wrap some of the plot lines up, because there was a lot that was going on, like especially during like this last chunk of the book. There were so many things that were going on and we ended up just not getting answers for them. They kind of just like wrapped it up, and it didn't leave me being like, okay, well, I hated that. I still loved it, so that's why I rated it 5 stars and it's in my top 10. Like, it still was done phenomenal, so that should tell you enough. This is told from the perspective of a mother and her son, and this talks a lot about the conversation between truth versus tradition and what we're taught growing up in school of like what our history is versus what actually happened. And that is very much the journey that the son goes on this. He kind of gets his eyes open to some things that he thought was like impossible or never would have happened. And the mom in this, she was a fighter in her like younger days, like in her past life. And now as she's older, she's a mother and supposed to be like quiet and just like raise the kids and not say anything. And she ends up being extremely important and goes through a huge transition with her life and her husband and her kids, and like so much happens and she evolves so much. She's a insane character to read about. Definitely one of my favorite characters in of the whole year is Misaki from the series. Like she is just absolutely phenomenal, and whew, she goes through so many, like she hits every single emotion in this book and you feel it with her. It's actually insane. I took a screenshot and highlighted one of the things that she said from this book, and it was just so like you could feel the rage inside of her and like the emotions that she was feeling. And I'll put it up on the screen. If you don't want spoilers or anything, you don't have to read it, but if you've read it you can look and see what I'm talking about. But I love this. Hopefully one day she decides to go back to it and is able to finish their stories, but if not, this is still amazing and I highly recommend this. So this is book number 8 for 2025. Book number 7 is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This, I've also seen a few reviews about this lately of people not liking it or DNFing it, which is crazy because I loved this. I actually listened to a lot of this on audio and then read some of it. This is told from the perspective of 3 different women from 3 different timelines that are all kind of from the same lineage and the same family. And wow, you kind of see the way that their stories kind of like connect to each other and the way that they all kind of had similar experiences, unfortunately, to do with men in their lives, and the way that they were mistreated and the way that they resorted to this kind of like inherent magic that they had, and the way that they kind of tapped into that to protect themselves and save other women. And I thought it was great. I really don't know how else to explain this because you really just follow their stories and their lives and the impact of all of that. If you wanted to try this, it's pretty short and it's on audio. It's like on Spotify. If you wanted to give it a try, I recommend it. I felt like it kind of changed my life. The cover is also gorgeous. I will say I read Sirens by the same author and it kind of seemed like she was going for a lot of the same themes as this book, but it wasn't as good in my opinion. So if you're going to read something by Amelia Hart, I would say read Wayward instead of the Sirens. If you're looking for more of just like a literary fiction style, like fantasy with magic and very much so like women empowerment and following their different stories from different timelines and different perspectives, I thought this was amazing and I love this. I will definitely be rereading this at some point in my life. Book number 6 is I, Medusa by Ayana Gray. I read this in December actually, and I felt so impacted by this. This is a Greek mythology Medusa retelling, obviously, and it follows her life from when she's like 13 years old to the end of her life, and it just makes you feel so empathetic towards Medusa and her life and the things that she went through, because we're always told Medusa's story as like she's this monster and this terrible person and was just on like a revenge, like a savage streak her entire life, which is not true if you read this, you know? The author's note at the end kind of told the reason why she wrote this story is because every time we're told about Medusa and all of the legends and everything, that's literally all you're told is that she's like this monster. But if you read this, it kind of goes into detail of her early days in her life and all of the tragic and like traumatic things that she went through that led her to be who she ended up being in all of these legends. And it really makes you feel for her and empathize with her situation. I thought this was phenomenal. Like I said, it was very tragic, very heartbreaking and traumatizing at some points, but it felt very important. And if you like Greek mythology retellings, I highly recommend this one. This was 5 stars, and I feel like not enough people talk about this. Okay, I hate this cover, but book number 5 is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. Her other cover I'll put up on the screen is the one that's like in stores that you can buy, and I actually don't own this book, but I need to buy it because God, I love Kennedy Ryan. I actually rated 2 books by her 5 stars this year. It was this and Real. But this one I just liked a little bit more, to be honest, because I resonated a lot with this. I definitely would say check your trigger warnings with this. But this love story is genuinely like nothing I have ever read, and it was heavy. It was heavy and traumatic, but 10 out of 10. So in this, we're following August and Iris, and they kind of run into each other at the beginning of this and are kind of infatuated with each other. However, Iris is in a relationship with another guy, and both of the guys in this do play basketball, and I think both of them end up going pro. But however, the relationship that Iris is in is a very traumatic and dangerous relationship, an abusive relationship. And August, they basically, it kind of spans over the course of quite a few years of August kind of like running into her. She's with this man and ends up, I don't think this is necessarily like a spoiler or anything, but they end up having like a baby together, and all of these things that happen in an abusive relationship that makes you so tied to this person and makes it hard for you to get out. And then August just basically ends up falling in love with her over the course of all of these years and ends up trying to help her, but it's really hard to help somebody who's in an abusive relationship. This was just, it was so emotional. I definitely would reread this as well. But like I said, check your trigger warnings if you are sensitive to any of those topics. Definitely also like essay as well. If you're sensitive to that, I would be careful going into this. However, I loved August. He was genuinely the sweetest, sweetest, sweetest boy ever. And I loved Iris as well. Like, oh, the ending of oh my god. Now that I'm remembering the ending of this, I was like I felt like the air got taken out of my lungs. I was like, there is no way that this is happening. Like, she just deserved so much better, and I'm glad that August was there and was seeing the signs and kind of realized what was happening and chose to protect her instead of just like brushing it under the rug and saying like, okay, that's not my problem, you know? Oh, oh my god. Oh my god. This is definitely my favorite contemporary romance that I think I have ever read, just because it impacted me so much and it felt very healing in a way for me to read as well, just to know, just kind of like see the way that I don't even know how to explain it. I just know like it's very, very hard to get out of an abusive relationship, and it's just kind of almost validating in a way to read other people's stories and kind of like see what happened to them. And like, I don't, it sounds so sick and twisted, but it is healing in a way to like know that like you're not alone when you're in these situations. Like, there are people who go through this and it actually is a real thing, and then there's people that are like, oh, well, why didn't you just leave? Read this and you'll find out that's why. Like, it's because it's impossible. But it was also still very cutesy at certain points too, so it wasn't all dark. It was really cute as well. I want to reread this, to be honest. I will say the second book in this, which I think is Blockshot, hated that book. I do not recommend Blockshot. However, the third book is Hookshot, I think, and that one was good. I liked that one. That one was fun. Blockshot, no. That man was insufferable. However, this one, perfect. Absolutely perfect. I loved this book. Okay, now we're getting into the top 5, which is crazy. I think, wait, this is only 4 books. Am I missing one? Oh, because that was number 5. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So we were already in the top 5. But these next 4 are, like, they could all interchange, to be honest. Like, the one I put at number 1, I put at number 1 because I read it back in January, and I still feel so many strong feelings for it, which is kind of tells me that that's why it should be at number 1. However, these other 3, I just love all of them so much. I just love all of them so much. Number 4, I put Morningstar by Pierce Brown, and honestly, wow. Oh, the ending of Golden Sun plus this book changed my life, I think. As you know, obviously this is the 3rd book in the series, but starting out with the 1st book, it's basically Red Rising is set, it's a sci-fi series, and their caste system is basically set by color. So we're following Darrow, who's a red, which is the very bottom color in like their caste system. And him and all of his people are believed that they were sent to Mars to mine it and basically make it ready for people to move to Mars from Earth and make it like inhabitable for people to live. And so they're basically living like underneath the ground and like mining it and supposed to make it livable for people to live there. You get what I'm saying? And little do they know, everyone already freaking lives there. Like, everyone is already living above ground on Mars, like living their life, and they're just living underneath it, mining it to support the people that are living above ground. Yeah, talk about fucking betrayal. So you kind of start out with Darrow, who is a red, and he's like mining and doing his thing, and then all of a sudden something extremely tragic happens to him and his family, and he is basically extracted by these people that are called the Sons of Ares, and they put him through this transformation to become a gold, which a gold is the highest color in the caste system. They're sending Darrow in to become a gold, go through their schooling, become a high ranking officer basically, and infiltrate the golds from the inside while the Sons of Ares are attacking from the outside, if that makes sense. Just to kind of simplify it, break it down, because it is a little bit confusing at the beginning, kind of understanding what is going on. Because in Darrow's POV, he's confused. Like, he's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what? So you are a little bit confused at times, but that's like the setup of it basically. Book one, you're following Darrow like go through the school, becoming a gold, like doing all of these things. It ends in the plot twist at the end of book one was crazy. The plot twist at the end of book two was fucking diabolical. The plot twist at the end of this, there were too many. I was like, I feel like I had whiplash at the end of this book, and then I was like, which makes sense why Pierce Brown was like, I'm gonna write another series, because so much happened at the end of this. Like, there's still so much, like, it ended conclusively. However, I could see why Pierce Brown was like, yeah, there's a lot that could be said and done from that. You know what I'm saying? So I think Morningstar was my favorite. Sometimes I say Golden Sun was my favorite just because the ending was my favorite, like, ending, insane ending to, like, when I finished Golden Sun, I was like, this is like Game of Thrones on crack. Like, that's how I felt. And then this, I was like, there's a scene in this with Severo and Cassius that lives rent free in my brain, and it has to do with a rope. If you know, you know. That lives rent free in my brain all the time because I was gagged at that scene. I can't even say enough good things about this. I can't wait to get into Iron Gold in this year coming up. I'm gonna read that at some point. I definitely will. Book three. The tears that I cried reading this book is diabolical. I cried way too many tears reading this. This is the fourth book in the Ember Quartet by Sabati here. This one's A Sky Beyond the Storm. If I had all day to talk to you, I would talk to you about how much I love Elias in this series. The romance that's in this is the smallest little subplot. Like, think Dorian and Manon in Throne of Glass. That's what you get in this. Is like minuscule romance, and it is so good. Like, that is genuinely what makes the series so good for me, is how much those little crumbs of romance just hit in the midst of all of the war and chaos and trauma that is going on in the series. For some reason, this is a YA series. However, this is so dark. This is so dark and traumatizing that I don't know how this is YA, to be honest. But yeah, just as like a little bit of a premise, we're following Elias, who is enrolled in this school. They are a part of like the Empire. They're in the school to become a part of the Empire and like fight for the Empire, basically. It's like a war school, like a army school. They're basically going to school to become the people that are, they call them masks because they wear like these silver masks that adhere to their face. However, you quickly find out in his POV that he does not support the Empire. He wants to be free of this. He does not agree with it. He doesn't want to be a part of it. So very quickly, like in his very first chapter POV, you find out that he is trying to come up with like this escape plan to get out of becoming a mask. And then in Laya's point of view, who's the other main character in this, she is a part of the scholars, who are definitely the more like oppressed group in this. And one day her brother ends up being caught with something that he is not supposed to have, and the Empire ends up kidnapping him and making him like a prisoner of war, basically. And so Laya kind of conjures up a plan with the rebels. She seeks out the rebels to go in to this war college, basically, and try to be like a spy to find out information about them so that the rebels will help her get her brother back. And you just go on from there, and it is insane. Book two was definitely my favorite until I read this one. Like, this one and book two kind of go back and forth, but oh my gosh. Book 1 will have you hooked for sure, and then by the end of it, you are like emotionally drained from this series. It's crazy. You also get a few other POVs that you start getting in book 2, I believe, and it kind of just adds a little bit more to the story and plot and everything, and the amount of betrayal that happens in this is crazy, and I cried so hard during this book. It was heartbreaking, I will say. And I don't know, do they get a happy ending? I don't know. You'll have to read it and get your heart broken and find out, you know? And then on to our last two, which I loved these books so much. And book number 2, honestly, I don't even know what to say about this, to be honest. Like, this and my number 1 book are both like very lyrical, pretty writing with like a very melancholic, almost like sad tone to it. I think that's like my ideal writing style, is like very lyrical and pretty words like strung together that almost are like a little bit sad, I guess you could say. I don't know. That's like my perfect book to read. It just hits so hard for me for some reason. And this, we're following Rave, who she's an assassin, but she has so much more to her story that you kind of find out the more you read, and I'm sure we'll find out more in book 2. But yeah, she is very unhinged. Like, she has this like kind of like second identity that comes out when literally like she sees black and starts going crazy, like killing people. It's like a whole different identity that comes out of her. It's crazy. You're following her in this world. There's like 3 different sections to it, I guess you could say. There's like a really hot section with like these like black saber dragons. I think they're saber-tooth dragons. And then there's a regular section with those dragons, and then there's a cold section with the moonplume dragons. And I just thought that was so cool and unique and very cutesy. This is a very like whimsical, lyrical world, I guess you could say. Like, I love Sarah A. Parker's writing. I just bought To Blue to Crystal Bloom by her because I want to read more of her writing. It's just so unique and it's just so pretty, I guess you could say. Like, she's very pretty writing. But in this book, she kind of does something crazy, and she basically goes to prison, and she is like sitting in this little prison cell, and that's when she runs into Khan. And when Khan sees her, he's like, like, I don't want to give too much away, but he kind of like has some thoughts about her. He's like, wait a minute. It's just so interesting, like the story that you go on and follow with them and kind of like just figure out what's going on inside of Khan's head. And then the side characters as well, you're kind of like given little pieces of information as you read. And then there's also these little diary entries throughout from a character that is referenced as in like a past person, like someone that is like dead at this point. And so you're getting these diary entries from this person that gives you like a little bit more information, and then the more you read it, you kind of like see everything come together, and the way that the romance kind of ties into that. Oh, it's MMC in this con is like so patient. Oh my god, I love this. I honestly kind of want to reread this before book 2 comes out, but it's so long that I don't really want to be honest. But I annotated the heck out of this. Like, any page you go to, I underlined stuff on it. Like, yeah, every single page pretty much. I underlined that. Like, the next page, like, I underlined so much throughout this, so I might just go through. Yeah, and there's one of the diary entries as well, so you get like some diary entries throughout this, and I just thought this was so beautiful, and I cannot wait for book 2. The writing is just so pretty. A lot of people that did not like this, writing is a big part of it, because there is a huge glossary at the beginning of this with a ton of different words and different things, so it kind of seems a little bit daunting going into this. So, oh my god, the art is just so cool. Like, do you see? That is so cool to me. I don't know. I know a lot of people have different feelings about this. However, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I love this so much. I cannot wait for book 2. Oh my gosh. And then my favorite book of 2025. I read this in January, you guys. I read this in January of 2025, and I have not stopped thinking about it. I had a peak reading experience with this book. I don't know what it was, but the vibes were so high when I read this book, and it hit so freaking hard when I read it. And book 2 as well. Like, it's a duology. Book 1 and 2 I rated 5 stars. However, I'm just putting book 1 on this list because every single thing about it was absolute peak for me. Like, anyway, it was Serpent in the Wings of Night, which I know a lot of people really love this book. Some people have mixed feelings about it. I had the best reading experience reading this book. And again, this is one of those writing styles that's like very pretty writing, a lot of like annotatable things that are very like pretty and whimsy, but also kind of dark and sad and melancholic, I guess you could say. And so I just really, really enjoyed that. That makes me very immersed in the story because that type of writing, I just love to annotate and just really be into it. And there was a lot about this that I really resonated with as well with the FMC. So basically, this is set in a world with vampires, and the FMC in this is actually not a vampire. She's a human, but she is raised by a king, like the king of the vampire. Like there's a Nightborn, Blood Born, and then Shadowborn. He is the king of the Nightborn, and she is raised by him, and he basically like raises her and trains her to be able to fight and defend herself, because every 100 years there are these trials, and if you win the trials, you are granted a wish from Nyaxia, who is like the goddess of the vampires, and her father figure is basically telling her like if you win these trials, you can wish for something that is like this I forget what it's called, but the Coriatis bond. It says it's a rare and powerful bond that can only be forged by a god, in which two people share all aspects of their power. So basically her father figure is like, if you win these trials and we take on this Coriatis bond, you can have all of the power that I possess as well. She ends up going into these trials, and that's where she meets Rain, who is the MMC in this, and their romance was done phenomenally. And the trials were done so well. I loved the trials. The side characters in this, like Misha, oh my god. I'm serious. I love this so much. Septimus, like everything about this, the setting, oh, peak reading experience. I cannot say it enough. And then the ending, I was gagged. I literally was floored. I could not believe the ending. Even now thinking about it, I'm like, that was one of the craziest, like Golden Sun ending, where I was like, there's no way. There's no. And then book two, the way it brought it back, oh my, I can't. Yeah, on the back it says, for humans and vampires, the rules of survival are the same. Never trust, never yield, and always guard your heart. I try to recommend this to people, like anytime I see a friend or somebody I know that starts reading fantasy, and of course they always start with like ACOTAR and then go to Fourth Wing and all these things. I'm like, please pick up the Crowns of Nyaxia duology. Like it is so good. I love this and book two, The Ashes and the Starcursed King. I hope one day I match that experience or read something that gives me that same experience, because I was just on I was just on such a high from reading these two books. And like I said, I annotated a lot of this too. Also, the relationship between Araya, who's at the FMC in this, and her father figure, Vince, like the turmoil, like the emotional turmoil and like kind of like emotional battle that she has going on in her head all the way through book two was also very relatable, and it that was very emotional as well. So not only do you get like the romance and like the betrayal and friendships and danger and all of this stuff going on in this world, you're also kind of dealing with like familial relationships as well and the hardships with that. I love this so much. I can't wait to reread this just to relive that experience. Those were my top 10 books. I feel like I talked way too long about all of them, but really quickly, oh my god, you guys. Really quickly, I just want to show this stack of books and just talk about all of these. These were all like 4.5, 4.75 ratings for me, and I loved all of these so much. And I honestly, like, these could be in my top 10 as well because I just loved them that much. And that is this stack of books. So I just real quickly will go over this. Jasad Air by Sarah Hashem. This is an Egyptian-inspired romantasy. The Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is a kind of mafia style, like rival family set in a fantasy world. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I cannot wait for this movie to come out. This was definitely like peak reading experience as well. Like, loved this book so much. Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. This is a hard read, to be honest. Like, if you've never read anything by Olivia Blake, I don't even know how to explain that book. It was a game played with death. Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Canas. This is like a paranormal historical fiction book, and loved it so much. I wish more people talked about this as well. House of Bane and Blood. Oh, I love this book so much. This is also kind of like a mafia style fantasy book, but it's more romantasy than Jade City's more fantasy, and this one's more romantasy. And then Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Everyone already knows and talks about that one, but it has a lot of the same like themes and like plot points as Masters of Death. So if you liked Bury Bones, I would maybe try Masters of Death. But yeah, this is like my honorable mentions list, I guess you could say. These are some of my absolute favorite books that I read this year, along with the other 10 that I just showed you. Oh, wow, what a year. Honestly, I cannot complain. I had such a good reading year. I feel like I really learned a lot about my reading taste and what I like, and I would say I definitely love fantasy, and now I'm starting to lean more into like sci-fi and high fantasy and stuff with like more of like a minor subplot of romance, because I think that's what like hits the best for me. That was so long. That's gonna take forever to edit. Let me know what your top favorite books of 2025 were and what books you're excited to get into in 2026. If you've read any of these books, let me know what your thoughts were, if you also loved them as much as I did. Yeah, I will see you in my next one. Bye!